Sounded. Bombs away. Oh. What's the mouthful press?
Oh, all right.
Never get nervous when the airplane seems to want to act up. It's your fault. How are they doing?
You're doing great. So you don't, okay. So Mary, you believe Mary had brothers and sisters?
Huh?
Your mother, did she have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, she did. She had, but nobody seemed to be with each other. Never could find out. All I know is that she was went to work for a candy shop at 14 years of age.
Okay.
And then there's no detail about how she met John, except he went to work on a ranch because he had no schooling or nothing, and he had to shovel the ground to start planting stuff down the dirt. I mean, for food, not for him, but as a business. And then she met him, and I don't know how it was. She was working in a store.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 13, she went to work in a store, being that you didn't have to figure out, all you had to know how to make change. There was no cards or nothing like that. And that's through that processing is, I think, how she met the dad, her husband, Dad, John. He's over there someplace, isn't he? Inside there.
Oh, he's right there. He's on the wall. On the wall over there.
Huh?
The picture on the wall. John Corey. There's a picture of him on the wall.
There.
That's right.
But that was taken by, wait a minute. Yeah, they took pictures later after they got married, they had to. And I mean, there had to be a kind of an integration here. But other than that, therefore, where the fan folks were, if there was any there, they were hiding them in the ground or they were traveling all over the country.
Did they get married in a church?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when they got married, did their families come together?
There was nothing said about getting married in a church. I said that.
Were there any pictures of the wedding?
If it was, then even the two kids that came to California when we were living in, Grandpa was living in the other place,
Mm-hmm.
they come down, they were already 20-some years old, both married, no children. And they stayed with us at the tank house for 2 weeks.
Oh, what were their names?
I can't remember, but they were part of the Corey, John family.
So say that again.
There were two sons that were married and were about 18 years of age back then. After World War II, and we were living out on the ranch.
World War II or World War I?
We were living in World War II. The family was been married and were now 20, 25 years old. They come to visit in California.
Oh, who visited you?
There were two of the boys that married two of the girls of two different families that knew each other.
Of whose family?
I haven't the slightest idea. They come in and says hi to us and disappear.
So you're saying...
They come down there and Grandpa shook the trees that had some food on it and gave it to them. They stopped. They didn't even stay overnight. Oh, they stayed in a little cabin that we had to use years ago to put feed in for the cattle.
And they were John's family or Mary's family?
John's family.
And they were brothers of his?
They were brothers and sisters, or brothers and brothers, sisters.
And this was one time?
They came, well, they started coming, but nobody, that was the only ones I ever met that came in there.
How many brothers and sisters do you believe?
I wouldn't have the slightest idea.
How many?
Other than that, I knew Grandma and Grandpa.
Was it two brothers and their wives came to visit you?
There was two brothers and two wives, yes.
Did your dad say that those were your...
They were like that.
And were they Portuguese?
They had to be. Grandpa, Grandma.
Were they Corey? Was their name Corey?
No. It had some other name.
What was the name?
I don't have the slightest idea.
Korea?
Huh? No.
No. So you're saying after World War II, you were all in San Jose, and two people came over to visit two of John's brothers.
The world had been over in this war that I was in.
So this was what, 1950?
1940, what, 30,
The war ended in 45.
and it was on for 4 years.
You got married in 1946. Did Nani meet them?
Yes. Her and I were living over there.
With Nani and Pop?
Yeah.
With John and Mary? Were you living with John and Mary when they visited?
Who's John and Mary?
Your parents, John and Mary.
No, I don't know. That was a different thing. I built my own home.
No, I know. Let's go back though. Nani met these two men. Where were you living when you met them?
We were living at our own place, but it was on the ranch, but another house.
You were living on John and Mary's ranch?
Who?
You were living on the ranch.
Grandpa owned that one.
Right. And
It had a tank on it, no water in it.
And you believe...
And they had the living room up on the top of it.
This visit between the two men, the two John's brothers, okay? When they came to visit you, did you call them uncle?
I didn't call them nothing. I didn't know who the hell they were, and I cared less.
Did you talk to them?
We said hi, hello, and blah, blah, and had what do you call it?
Dinner?
No. Had what they call the way they talk in the East. They have their own talk. They talk for funny.
Oh, a brogue.
Yeah.
What kind of brogue?
Of aliens, we didn't know. I didn't care. I didn't understand them half the time.
Was it like a New York brogue, or was it
I didn't have the greatest thing about it.
Was it park the car in the garage?
Yeah.
Oh, New England.
Right.
A Rhode Island accent.
Exactly.
They came from Rhode Island.
That's the way I understand it. They come down there. They came to visit them. They didn't stay there, but they came by a couple of different times. Of the time they were there. And then they went on their own. I think they had families down there someplace else, but I never saw them anymore.
Was there other family that they were going to...
I haven't the slightest idea. If they did, I didn't know it.
How many brothers do you think...
I didn't think they had anything there.
So up until this day, you did not know that your father had two brothers. And then they came in, you met them, you had a conversation.
Well, Grandpa went back there and visited that whole damn bunch, you know.
Yeah, when did they go back and visit?
While they were staying in that place.
I know, but what year? Do you remember what year they went back to visit Rhode Island?
The war was over, so how year was that?
That would be after...
22, 20, I mean...
That would be after 1945.
Well, it was around that time.
They went back to Rhode Island.
I don't know where they went back, whether they stole someplace else, whether they were living in California, whether they were living in Mexico.
How long were they gone? How long were they gone?
What?
When they went back to Rhode Island.
I don't know. I never heard from them again. Grandma and Grandpa got on a ride from Hollister and went all the way back for a month. And visited all their family. Everybody learned everything but me.
Let me ask you a question.
I don't know nothing.
I want to ask you a question. Do you remember when they were in Rhode Island? Did they say...
I know nothing about them living in Rhode Island.
When they were visiting... After the war...
What I heard from them.
After the war, when they were visiting Rhode Island...
Who?
Okay, when John and Mary visited Providence, Rhode Island...
Why were they visiting Providence, Rhode Island?
You just told me they visited...
California they visited.
Oh, you're talking about the boys that came out here.
California. The young ones that knew Grandpa as an old man. Family of his family, father or something.
Were they his brothers?
No, they were friends of the sister and brother. They were already 20, 25 years old.
Were they John's brothers?
Not that I know of. If they did, they did stop.
So were they friends of the family, or were they...
I wouldn't know whether they just took a chance and found out that Grandpa and Grandma, or they're not the grandma, but the alien family, was down there in California, so they decided to take the trip and found them.
And they had a brogue. They had an accent.
No, not really. They talked just as good as we did. Little a little straighter, more decisive, but not blah 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 like we were.
What did they do for a living?
I never cared, and I didn't know, and I didn't know if it was possible.
How old were they?
I'd say in their 30s.
And they lived with your dad? Or they were friends?
Never saw them again. Never knew. All I knew when they arrived there, they were a relative of Grandpa's in his family. But I don't know whether it was on the mother's or father's side or what, or that they knew that he had been there and he met him again. I don't know.
And you never met him again?
Oh, I tell you, you wouldn't believe it. This shit's gonna raise hell with this great world, not only the United States. You watch. And I'll be right. Now that's what they've been waiting for me up there. As soon as this goes to hell, I'm gone.
I love you, Pop. You're the best.
Well, okay, take your ticket.